Hello, welcome to Library Connection. I'm Mandy Cantrell, Youth Services Director at the B.B. Comer Memorial Library here in Sylacauga. Before I get started, I'd like to thank TV47 and Robert for all they do to help us put this program on. I'm excited about this one today, as I am all of our programs, I know, but this one is about my hometown, Sylacauga, our hometown. Linda Dickson has joined me today. She is with the, you have many hats, I know, but you're kind of here today with the Sylacauga Historical Commission.
Exactly.
Right? I know that's not all you do, though. Just tell them about yourself a little bit.
Oh, well, thank you, Mandy, for allowing us to talk a little bit about Sylacauga today. I have been a resident of Sylacauga since about 1972. I grew up in Talladega, Alabama, and was fortunate enough to find a wonderful guy and married him, and we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary.
We did.
That's wonderful.
We did. And then I was fortunate enough to teach American history for 26 years in the city school system. Worked 7 years for the ARC doing fundraising, and have been at SAFE on my third career with the Alabama Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Initiative for 14 years.
My goodness.
But my passion has been history, and I think growing up in Talladega and being involved with different areas of the history, from the county history to Talladega's history now to Sylacauga's. It's just a passion. I'm fascinated with it. So.
Well, I'm glad there are people like you to preserve this, because without someone like you to preserve it, it might all be lost.
Well, there is actually one of my favorite historians is a former mayor of Talladega. And he said, we need to be so grateful that there were, and I'm not talking about myself, but I'm talking about people like Miss Betty Leslie and so many of our local historians that have preserved for us. But his comment was, it was so unselfish of them to preserve so that our future generations will know what a heritage they have.
Yes, we don't ever want to forget.
No.
What happens. Very exciting. Well, you were a part of the, you're the chairman of the Sylacauga Historical Commission, and 3 historical markers were unveiled. I know it was in March, and that was kind of pre-COVID, but everything kind of stopped for a while. But I've had this article on my desk for several months here, and wanted to ask you to come in to talk about them. There were 3 markers unveiled, right? Right. What were they?
Well, actually,
I think we've got some slides too.
Wonderful. Of course, this one is dear to my heart because this is Silicata Cemetery. And you know, a lot of people will mistakenly call it the Fort Williams Cemetery because it is on Fort Williams, but those are 2 distinct cemeteries. But what is so unique about the Sylacauga Cemetery is that it is the only existing landmark of what was old Sylacauga. You and I are in Newtown.
Okay.
And old Sylacauga, of course, was our original village that was at the corner of the intersection of Fort Williams and Main. And right under the traffic light that we all stop for was actually the Old Town Well. Isn't that fascinating think about that? Wow. But the slides that you're seeing, we, of course, our wonderful marble, and we credit, of course, Dr. Gant, but also the Hurd brothers.
Yes.
And so we're looking at the 2 monuments that you just saw. But this monument is dear to me because this is the burial plot of Mary Ann Oden Stubblefield. And at age 18 in 1839, she died in childbirth. And she was the first person interred in that cemetery. So there was a need for a cemetery. You know,
Yes.
prior to, a lot of people would bury family members on their property. But
sure.
that is where our cemetery began. And so that's why it is so important to realize that is a part of Old Town, of Old Sylacauga.
Okay, old. And this is the one behind CVS.
Exactly, exactly. And we've been fortunate through the Alabama legislature and the Alabama Historical Commission, 2012, we were able to do a restoration. And of course, if it had not been for the Sylacauga Beautification Council in 1975, Gene Peters and the host of Sylacaugians that supported they saved that cemetery.
Oh.
And the markers were restored then, but then from 1975 to 2012, there had been a lot of deterioration, but we are very pleased that we were able to get 2 grants to preserve and restore our cemetery.
It is beautiful. I mean, I haven't been in the last few years, but I do remember when it was cleaned up and looked so nice, and we do need to preserve that.
So many stories there.
Oh,
You know, there's just, we've done a few walking tours where we will talk about the significant stories there, just fascinating.
That is interesting. That's neat. That was the one for the Sylacauga Cemetery. Now, the next one, I guess, would be the B.B. Comer Library.
Oh, well, you know, we just have to say, of course, we all think about that as being our museum now.
Right.
But yes, the story begins, and I think I have just a minute that I can share with you
Yes.
what is so significant about that. This is actually a National Register property.
National
National
okay.
Register property. And the Museum Board, as we know with Donna Renfro, took the initiative with our encouragement and a little bit of help to get this building on the National Register. You know, the library was constructed in 1939 by the Works Progress Administration, which was part of the New Deal from Franklin Roosevelt.
Yes.
And the building, I really was not aware of this, but the result of there were $16,588 from local funds raised so we could have this building. Now, in 1939, that was quite significant.
A lot of money.
There was like a $5,000 donation from the family of Governor Braxton Bragg Comer.
Yes.
And that's, of course, who the original library was named for.
Yeah.
But one of the neat things about the library was that it was dedicated on November 21st, 1939, on what was called March of Progress Day. And it was a day that Sylacauga set aside to celebrate growth and accomplishments.
Oh, wow.
Fabulous. And so this was the opening of the library at that time. And we have always been a leader with our libraries, and we just tip our hat to your organization, our hometown library and media center, so to speak. But what they found so significant was that the beautiful marble, of course, was locally quarried from our own quarries that the building was made from. So it's quite a gorgeous building, and I call it the matriarchal building of our city.
Oh, okay.
And it's so important that we take care of that building, and Donna and her staff do all that they physically and possibly can, but we need to treasure that building.
I remember going there when I was a little girl, going to the library there. That's interesting. Well, we're going to pause for a commercial break, and we'll be right back and talk some more.
Home making you sick? Moisture and unsafe air from your crawl space can infiltrate your home, causing health hazards and high utility bills. Ox Foundation Solutions can remedy any mold or mildew problem in your home. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Funny to say that Tony said for a Sylacauga.
Keep more cash for back to school with 0% APR financing for up to 72 months and up to $13,000 off MSRP on new Ford trucks. Plus, we've got guaranteed credit approval and up to $4,000 over KBB value for your trade when you upgrade to a new Ford.
The right people, a better customer experience, and nobody beats our bottom line price. Nobody.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with the president of the Sylacauga Historical Commission, Linda Dickson. Thank you so much again for being here. This is
wonderful.
Very exciting. I love to hear about our history. It's my hometown, and we've talked about the cemetery and the Comet Library. There's one more marker that was in that group of three for the bicentennial. It's the Sylacauga Historic Commercial District.
Exactly.
Is that right? Yeah.
I referenced earlier that original Sylacauga was referred to as Old Town. Well, on I believe it was December the 6th, 1886, we received a railroad. We really received two.
Okay.
And of course, the location of the railroad, everyone knows where our main track is that goes across Broadway. And of course, at that point in time, it made sense to bring businesses and move Sylacauga to closer to the railroad.
Okay.
And so that is exactly what happened. And that became Newtown.
Newtown, okay.
And so our dates of significance in Newtown start about 1886, and it was actually the Anniston and the Atlantic Railroad that was the first railroad to come through Sylacauga. And there was a land company known as the Marble City Land and Furnace Company, and they purchased 300 acres of land and plotted a new commercial district. And our commercial district goes from 4th Street up to the corner, and this the corner where you see the marker is actually the beginning. The application to put our commercial district on a national register was actually submitted in 2004, and these markers are they're very expensive, and we were just fortunate that this last, the council that we have now, had a vision to purchase these markers for us so we could use them as our storytellers.
Yes.
And so the research that was done, we had a preservation consultant that came in and identified the buildings, and actually I believe we have, when the survey was done, we had approximately 74 buildings that were surveyed, and I believe 68 were what we call contributing resources, and that meant that they were over 50 years of age and had maintained some of the exterior, most of the exterior integrity.
Okay, right.
And there's something so significant. How do you know that there is historical significance, and why do you keep it?
Right.
The theory is, ideally, that the original owner could come back to downtown and say, oh, that's my building.
Oh, okay.
And that is mostly when you have a strictly enforced design review guidelines. We right now have a voluntary guideline enforcement.
Okay. Well, that is exciting. I just love to see that. Last one for the Historical Commercial District is in the lot where the mural is.
Yes, yes,
Yes, yes, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is, and so that's Newtown.
This is where Newtown begins.
Wow.
It is. There's so many fascinating stories. Of course, we're fortunate to have a few pictures where before even the roads were paved, and I just think it's fascinating to me to think at one time we had 3 hotels downtown Sylacauga at one time because people had to have a spot overnight for their railroad travel. So fascinating to me as well.
That is interesting. Now I know we've talked a little bit. There's the National Registry and the State Registry.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about applying for something?
Well, of course, our resource, our guide for the Sylacauga Historical Commission is the Alabama Historical Commission. And Hannah Garman has been our liaison. She has helped us guide and find a lot of our resources. It's important to realize a state register, and that's the Alabama Register, the landmarks of landmarks. The date or the age, 40 years. And that doesn't seem like a very old property. But what is unique is that there needs to be architectural significance, event significance, maybe just the connection of a person and their contribution, that maybe it's their home, or maybe it's more than likely it's going to be an event. National Register is 50 years, and that is really not that old.
Very long.
But you're looking at an opportunity when you have a property surveyed to have that listed, all the information preserved and saved in Montgomery with the commission. And also with the Department of Interior for the national properties.
Oh, goodness.
So we're recording our history by doing the monuments and encouraging others. One thing I think you mentioned to me earlier is that you do not have to come through the Historical Commission to put a property on the register.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
As a citizen, you're free to look at the application and do that, and they meet. Alabama's register group meets 4 times a year, quarterly, and they have a review committee.
Sure.
So, but the process is very workable, and of course, as a commission, we are delighted to guide and help.
Yeah. And you're a great resource because you've done this several times.
We have.
And I know a lot of work goes in before you apply, a lot of research, I'm sure.
Yes, and
verifying it.
Yes, and actually there is a group in Montgomery that will even assist with that.
Oh,
so
good. Wonderful.
And then we have the best resource with our library. I have spent hours in the genealogy room looking at stories and getting dates and times, and so wonderful resource here in Sylacauga.
Thank you. We are glad to do that. We're going to pause for another commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about Sylacauga history.
Home making you sick? Moisture and unsafe air from your crawl space can infiltrate your home, causing health hazards and high utility bills. Ox Foundation Solutions can remedy any mold or mildew problem in your home. It's time to get strong. How strong? Ox Strong. Get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Falling to Sailor Tony Seraporo Sylacauga.
Keep more cash for back to school with 0% APR financing for up to 72 months and up to $13,000 off MSRP on new Ford trucks. Plus, we've got guaranteed credit approval and up to $4,000 over KBB value for your trade when you upgrade to a new Ford.
The right people, a better customer experience, and nobody beats our bottom line price. Nobody.
Marble City Pharmacy in Sylacauga is your destination for the highest quality health care. Our knowledgeable pharmacists are always available for questions about your medications or advice on taking over-the-counter products and supplements. Our friendly staff can assist you in choosing from our full lines of compression hose and medical equipment. And don't forget our gift department. We have a great selection of unique gifts for every occasion. Stop by and see us today. Marble City Pharmacy, here for life.
Welcome back to Library Connection. I'm talking with Linda Dickson from the Sylacauga Historical Commission. We've talked about some of the markers in Sylacauga that have been put up, the national and the Alabama historical markers. This is maybe seem like a real obvious question, but why are these important?
Mandy, that is a deep question, and it's so important. One of the best answers that I have received comes from one of the officers with the National Trust, and Tom May. In fact, several years ago at the library, we were able to host the Alabama Historical Commission, and we had a representative from the National Trust that came. And I'll just share what he said because it speaks to me. And Tom says, well, why do these places matter? And it says, he reminds us that old places are good for people to build a strong sense of community, a strong place of attachment. You know, you yourself think about our new buildings downtown, our new stores. Everybody loves the exposed brick. We love seeing the past.
Yes.
We love the ghost signs that pop up underneath the paint. But this builds a strong sense of community. And when you think about hometown, it's wonderful that we can think about our main street and our two main streets, actually. But this was a comment that he made. He said, you know, we lose so many of our memories and we lose our people. But as long as you have something to touch or a roof to be in an old building, those memories are alive. And it's just, they're great historical value because it keeps us rooted. And it's a very healthy thing. It's very healthy to be focused on what we can do to build a strong sense of community.
You're so right. That is so true. That's wonderful, I know. And years from now, people who know about these buildings and these places will be gone. And we need it recorded.
And our markers, as I said earlier, they're our storytellers. You know, I hope that we can continue. Our cemetery has been sort of what I call an open air classroom. You know, I can teach local history for any history teacher in the system that would, you know, like to bring a small group to the cemetery to help the kids track local history and then connect it to, well, what was going on in Alabama, you know, how at that point in time, or what was happening in the nation. So we're more than happy to share old Sylacauga or new Sylacauga.
Right. That is interesting. Now we have some other markers in town, correct?
We do, and of course the very earliest markers, as you come in on 21, of course, is our Sylacauga marker.
Yes.
And that one is, I think, is our very oldest, and that helps define the history there. That by 1748 we had the Shawnee Indians from the Ohio Valley, that had come in to merge with our creek residents. And then, of course, the Fort Williams marker that helps identify the trek of Andrew Jackson coming in.
Now, I know there's one where East Highland School used to be. I know the school is not there anymore.
Exactly. And that is a local designation. Of course, East Highland High School was built in 1952, and it was on the state register, the Alabama Register. And sadly enough, there is a preservation term that it all but hurts me to say it, and it's called demolition by neglect. And it was just a sad happenstance that the building was past repair. Beautiful property, and it was just the joy of the commission and the generosity of the city that they purchased the East Highland High School marker, and it has a great story. And we would invite anyone to go by the East Highland site and read the story. It is wonderful.
I know I should take the time to stop and read all of the markers. I mean, I go, oh yeah, I know that marker is about the Comer Library, but I need to stop and read it. Well, we've got about a minute left, but what will happen to these areas in the future? Are they protected by being on the registry?
There is also a wonderful opportunity if you go to the website for the Alabama Historical Commission or for the National Trust, and there is a list of what we call myths. In other words, people, they have the wrong impression about what happens to properties. The property, if it's privately owned, that is, if you're in a designated district and you in turn need to make changes, if you have a design review that is enforced, the persons would come to the commission and request to do exterior changes. Nothing that is on the register has anything to do with what's on the interior of the building.
Well, I am sorry, but our time is up. We could probably talk another half hour, but thank you so much for sharing about our history and the markers. Right. And thank you so much for joining us on Library Connections.